Evening everyone, and welcome to Iarmhi TV podcast episode 10. We're delighted to welcome the Hogan Cup winners, Coláiste Mhuire, from last weekend. They were working in the right place last week, lads, to be coming in, I suppose, and celebrating last week, the day after. But wonderful victory in Croke Park last year. So I'd just like to welcome Dee McNicholas, Brian Murta and Matt Carney, the management team from the victorious team. And we're also joined by players Mikey Weir, Ty Masterson and Michael Maloney. Welcome, lads.
Cheers.
Congratulations first and foremost. Wonderful day out in Croke Park last Tuesday, Dino.
Yeah, great day. Historic, and I suppose the feeling after was pure relief. Brought an awful lot of joy, I think, to people in Mullingar, and the lads were absolutely over the moon, and I suppose just delighted with the way it panned out. Yeah.
Most things went to plan on the day. I presume from I know when you're on the sideline and you're in the heat of the battle, and you start roaring and shouting at refs and stuff like that, it's difficult. But most things on the day probably went as according to plan as you saw fit on the day.
Maybe the start probably took us by surprise a little bit. We've been slow starters throughout the year. I think we're behind in 4 or 5 games at half time. So I think the first 10 minutes of football was unbelievable by the lads. You're just hoping that they settle into it and nerves don't become a factor, and we really did hit the ground running, whereas it took Tralee a little bit of time to get a grip on the game. But when they did, they took control of it for a large period of time. And as things panned out, I think we got our matchups pretty right. The lads did a really good job on them, and just overall delighted.
Yourself, Brian, you're a Roscommon man at heart, but it's nice to bring a cup back to Mullingar.
Yeah, no, I'm here in Mullingar now, 12 years in Coláiste Mhuire, and my wife is from Mullingar as well. So, yeah, I suppose I spent a good part of my life now in Mullingar, so I can see the tide starting to turn now and starting to become a Westmeath man.
Yeah. It's a wonder Lomans and Shamrocks haven't been nothing. But it was great to be involved with this group of young men that are willing to put their shoulder to the wheel and to put everything into it that you asked them for.
Yeah, no, I can't speak highly enough of the 3 lads that are behind you and the lads behind the cameras there. Just a phenomenal group of lads to work with. They really are like sponges. Any instructions that we would tell them, or anything that goes on in training sessions, like they're really able to take it on board, and they have the calmness and the composure then to execute what we tell them then, and I suppose obviously the quality on top of that then to back it up. And I know that, I do actually want to credit lads that were involved last year. It's not just a year-long thing, it's been 2 years and more in the making, this journey, and the lads from last year's team, they deserve great credit for the way that the standards that they set for these lads here to follow, and they ably accepted the baton, and they've followed through in great suit. Yeah.
And Matt, yourself, you're a Longford man.
Yeah.
It's from Fogney, is it?
Fortney, yeah, just
Fogney,
this side of Ballymahan there,
we would have one of your players playing with ourselves for a couple of years in Connor Keegan.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
It's great to have a bunch of players like this that really set the standard for underage football going forward for the next couple of years, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose in the school we're very lucky the last couple of years that we've had an awful lot of success at the underage levels, in first year and second year, and even the under 16s. And I know that Brian would have been involved back in 2018 when the school won the All-Ireland against St. Brendan's at Killarney, but probably last year was a real monkey off the back in getting that senior title under the belt. But it's even just seeing things like we did last Friday up in the school. The whole school community welcomed us in, and our first years won the Leinster title just the week before we played Tralee in the Hogan. So it's great for those lads to see, I suppose, these older men here to your left side there, setting the bar, setting the standards, and showing what lads are capable of when everybody gets together. And obviously a huge amount of work goes into it, but we're very lucky at the minute that we definitely have a very talented bunch up there. And some great clubs feeding into us as well. We're lucky with that.
No, absolutely. And just moving over to the lads here very quickly. Lads, congratulations first and foremost. It's a wonderful victory and a standard bearer for the school going forward. But in terms of yourself, Mikey, as captain, what was it like to walk up to the steps of the Hogan stand and accept an All-Ireland trophy?
Oh, it was a huge honour, you know. I think that's been a dream of mine since I was a young lad out kicking ball in the back garden, to walk up the Hogan steps and then to do it with your school and the fellas you've grown up with all along. It's unbelievable. Like, I don't think we set out there to be at Croke Park at the start of the year. We were taking it game by game, but then before you know it, your dream is becoming a reality. And then when the final whistle went, I think I got spear tackled by our water boy who was giving me our speech. So then walking up there, it's just, you're seeing your friends, the people who've given up so much time to you, and just unbelievable. There's no words that can put to the feeling. And I was lifting that cup for our school, so unbelievable.
Yeah, no, massive honour. Ty, you were given a task to mark one of their danger men. How did you feel about that?
Look, I suppose when you're going out in those kind of games, you know, there's lads that are going to be good and they need to be taken care of, and I suppose it's a great honour to be trusted as part of the full back line. Like, not a lot of people want to be playing there, but I suppose, like, when you're trusted with marking their best players, it's, you know, you have a job to do, and when you can do that job, that's the only thing you have to do. And it's great that he scored 4 points, but he only scored 1 from play. So
And you didn't foul him for it.
No, I didn't foul him either.
No, there you go. No, and yourself, Michael, you were given a sort of a free rein by the looks of things. You spend most of the time up closer to their goals than you did to our own, but to walk away with 1-2, and if Will had passed the ball into you very close to the goals, you were in for the point at the very end as well. You were always an option for the lads. But what did it feel about getting the knock in to not brought us 6 points up going in at half time?
The boys are always giving me a bit of snare in that. Probably the only back that's one of the three up half the time, but look, no, it's easier when these boys get the man marking jobs, and it gives me a bit of a licence, as you said. But look, I suppose scoring in Croke Park, it's special, and just winning was unreal at the end. And
to pick up man the match, extra special.
It's an added bonus, but I don't think anyone really sets out looking to get man of the match on the day. It's a team effort, and look, I'm just happy I was able to contribute with a few scores.
Yeah, exactly, and it's all about the team. But just going back to the three lads here in management, there's obviously good structures in place in Coláiste Mhuire that, listen, we could all learn from them in other clubs and especially county teams going forward. But what sort of structures do you put into these lads from, say, day dot when they come in first year?
Oh, I suppose we're lucky enough that the clubs are providing us with a serious talented footballer at the moment, and look, at a bugbear of ours in the past would have been that we were picking up first year titles and a couple of under 14s maybe, but we weren't, for whatever reason, doing it at maybe under 16 and particularly senior level. Like last year was our first year to win an Leinster title since 1983, so there was that gap. But look, I have to say, I think there's been a massive amount of work put in by the staff of Coláiste Mhuire, not just by the three of us, by anyone that's getting involved in the sporting side of things. The demand for football at the moment in school, and it's just huge. So much so that this year, starting out at each of the age groups now, we actually have second teams. So we're trying to make it, I suppose, accessible as possible for as many players that want to play it. Now it brings its own challenges as well, because what we have in terms of playing pitches and so on is limited to one field. So we're really dependent on the support of the clubs. But no, look, there's a huge amount of hard work going in there. There is, and there's no point in saying otherwise. Look, at coming up to, I suppose, Leinster finals, All-Ireland semi-finals, we're on the pitch 2-3 days a week with doing maybe 2 or 3 different video sessions in a week. But it's very rewarding and very easy to do when you're dealing with gentlemen like these lads are. That's the only way you can describe them. Yeah, and just like as you said, you've been very successful coming up through the ranks in first year, second years, and junior sirs. But what do you think was the one thing that you had to get into these lads or breathe into them to get them across the line like they did last Tuesday?
Well, I suppose, Alan, we were finding maybe a few years ago our season was nearly finished in October, November. So we took it upon ourselves maybe to get back a little bit earlier, get our team started, maybe in February and March, and start a few skill sessions and get the lads, the different years starting to combine and mix with one another. So that, I think, kind of helped. Then it was a little bit easier when you go back in August and September to get a little bit of momentum and challenge games and know what team that you're dealing with.
You also have to have very accommodating principal and vice principal in the school to let you bring these young lads out for different challenge matches and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure that you had the backup of all these hierarchy of the school, let's say.
Yeah, I suppose we better be careful there. Niall O'Brien is looking at me, but no, I have to say, like, a huge thanks goes to our principal Keith Quinn, and then Niall over there and Micheál Lawler, 2 deputy principals. Yeah, like, I suppose in fairness we'd go looking for things throughout the year, and more often than not the answer that we'd be given was yes. But I suppose there's a lot of stuff maybe goes on behind the scenes, especially when you get to like the crunch end of the season after Christmas. You might go looking for extra little bits and you're hoping you've a bit earned in the bank, at that stage. That's hard to say no, but no, to be honest, we've got great support from the school management, so it does make life an awful lot easier for
and then
us.
you look at the Leinster final, there was 2 Westmeath schools. I'm not sure if that ever happened before. Jerry, you be a stats man.
It happened twice before.
Happened twice before.
81
okay.
and 83, yeah.
Okay, well, if you're looking at probably an average, probably 95% of the players were Westmeath players that played in the final this year. You'd be looking forward, Jerry, to Westmeath taking advantage of this going forward.
Yeah, just to start by saying, I feel like a father in my speech and said, Reverend Fathers, ladies and gentlemen, with Father Phil and Father Andre here, and they're very welcome. But just to say, I went to St Mary's Primary School, and then I went to St Finian's. My father taught Finian's, and he would have taught Father Phil and taught with him later. And Finian's was a difficult enough place then, but very strong at football. And I always remember when Father Phil came to Mullingar, and as ADM, he talked about his career, and he said he was sent back to teach in Finian's, and he said, I spent 15 years there for a crime I didn't commit. And I never forgot that. So that was Finian's those days. So just on the football front too, before I forget to say it, the cycle of life, I brought out a book in 2003, 50 years of the Hogan Cup. And at the start of this year, you couldn't make it up. The college's council rang me and they said, would you be interested in updating it this year? And said I would. And I said to Dean, he'll recall this. At that stage, I suppose there were 32 teams left in the Hogan Cup. I said, my dream is to see Mikey Weir as the captain this year on the front of that book. And when I hugged Dean after the match, he said, we delivered on that. But the first captain in 1946 was a man called Pat O'Neill, Patrick's Armagh, Dr. Pat O'Neill, one of nature's gentlemen. And he was buried last week at the age of 97. The night that we had the podcast last week. So the cycle of life, I just thought it was very odd with a nature's gentleman. So just to get on to the questions that you asked, yeah, I think it's obviously it's a great boost for Westmeath football. Those 81 and 83 finals, the Carmelite in 1981 went on to win the All-Ireland, but they had a lot of lads borders, and so this is the first I know it's the second Westmeath school to win the Hogan Cup, but it's the first all Westmeath school, all Westmeath players, and I think that's phenomenal achievement. And obviously I hope that they will all go on. Not everyone will turn into an intercounty player, but those who do, will wear the Westmeath jersey with the same pride that they wore the green jersey this year. Bit of a low after the match in Wexford yesterday. I just said people afterwards were expecting to be kind of semi-suicidal, but I said I've enough credit in the bank from the Coláiste Mhuire win, thankfully, to kind of keep me over the next few days. So the lads showed that the converse between, and I'm not taking a cheap swipe at yesterday, but that was a match we should have won and didn't. The lads in Croke Park against a Kerry team. How many teams have gone a point behind against a Kerry team with time up and won the game? So it makes the achievement all the more special. And I hope and pray that when they do wear the maroon jersey, they'll bring that never say die spirit to it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, lads, just one thing that I sort of stood out to me was and the thing that I try, any team I'm involved with myself, I try to get the team to make good decisions on the ball. And we all want that to say whenever you're on the ball. But I have to say, looking at Coláiste Mhuire playing the last 3 or 4 matches where they were on clubber and you get to watch them and stuff like that, but at work and you get to watch them and have a look at them. But I think that the one thing that stood out with you guys is that your decision making on the ball is extremely good.
Look, we know each other inside out by now from seeing each other every day, so our decision making is very good. I like to think our skills are very good as well. But look, we just try to give the ball to the man in the better position the whole time, and it makes it easier as a team to do that. And on that, we just think that if you give the ball, let the ball do the work in that sort of sense. There's no point kicking the ball along when it's not on. If you can keep it through their hands and you can play the game at your own pace, it will suit you. And that's what we've been doing all year. You know, we've gone behind at times. We went behind against the Gary team, went behind against the Abbey. We were half time. We were behind against Mars, but you know, we didn't panic. We just kept the ball and we kept playing to our system. We kept playing our game. So that's all we've been doing.
I think you said it in your speech, Mikey, after in your Man of the Match Acceptance Award. I think you said something like there was a width of the post in St. Pat's and Navan. If it went the other side of the post, you could have been out. And how simple things can swing one way and the other.
Yeah, the keeper took a shot off the ground from, I don't know, it could have been 45 yards out, and that could have been us gone. And look, we rallied after that game. We managed to get the result, and we were filling out a little form yesterday on the year, and I put that down as a turning point in our season. I definitely think it was, because the weather conditions weren't ideal at all, and we rallied as a team, and I think that just lifted us from there, and we went on.
Yeah, grinding out victories like that, Ty, is definitely the best thing about a team. Like, you can win by 10, 15 points, as we've all been in a position, but to grinding out victories is what's great about a team, and you need to grind out a few of them this year.
Yeah, like the boys are saying, like you said there, we did grind out a few, but I suppose we kind of be known for our flashy footballers like Mick and the boys, but we weren't afraid to win dirty like that and win rough, and I suppose we kind of came accustomed to it in the end. We needed to, with the weather being so bad on so many occasions and us going down by a point, but I think we kind of learned the art to do that towards the end of the year, the dark arts, if you want to call it, just knowing how to find the way to win in late scenarios, and that's kind of what we got good at. So yeah,
absolutely. And we can't go without saying how good a year, I know some of you boys weren't involved, but how good a year the hurlers had for CBS. Like, it's a massive thing to get two teams to be as competitive as you are, but the hurlers, even the training that they're getting, probably helps you boys as well.
Yeah, it did a huge year, and I think for a school there to be fighting at A level across all codes, and that's something I think the school has to take great pride in, and it goes back to the work that's going on there. I suppose Micheál Lawler is spearheading that there, so his was Kilkenny hat on, but no, we had a huge crossover of lads. I think there could have been 10 lads. Now, it brought its own challenges, obviously. You know, we probably had the most amount of injuries we had, definitely this year in comparison to last year. Last year was very straightforward, but this year every game we seem to be picking up knocks. But it is a challenge, but we're lucky that both management teams get on really well with one another and we're able to manage it. Some weeks we'd have to take a session or two off, and vice versa with the hurlers. But I suppose just trying to manage the players, making sure that they're physically fit and mentally fit as well, because they're getting pulled in so many different directions, from sports in the school and sports outside the school.
Yeah, and you can't expect teams from outside the school either not to be trying to pull them in their direction as well. They're obviously looking for the best of them with their teams, but it's not going to be any easier over the next couple of years either, because lots of these lads are dual players at the minute, and it looks like, Brian, that's the way they're going to go, and they're going to keep plugging away at both.
Yeah, no, in fairness, look, we have to give great credit to, like what you said there, Alan, the under-20 managers and minor managers. They were very understanding, especially when, you know, from, I'd say, a couple of weeks before the Leinster final, it wasn't easy with an all-Westmeath team, or an all-Westmeath final, on the under-20 and the minor managers having to cope with that as well when they were trying to prepare their team. So they were extremely understanding and right the way through, and they had our backing. But like what Dean said there, it's important that the player comes first and foremost, and that they're fresh, and, you know, physically fresh and mentally fresh as well when they're needed on the big days.
Yeah, and just if Jerry wants to come in there with a question or two, you know, you want to.
Yeah, well, I wanted to just say something that Michael referred to, the little questionnaire he was doing. I've decided with the manager's consent to put a little booklet together of the campaign, and it's going to feature a profile of all the players and the match reports and photographs that John McCauley is supplying. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going off on Wednesday morning for a few days with my lady friend to Prague. So if anyone has tickets for that, they'll get an extra mention in the book. But I was looking at the profiles today, and it was kind of a standard thing, your favourite player growing up and all that sort of thing. So no one mentioned Alan Mangan as their favourite player. So we can rewrite
any more questions this
You're too young.
You should have asked Dean.
But that's a little thing I'm looking forward to putting together, you know, and I just want to give a shout out. That costs money, so I got in touch with the Moore family, John Moore, you know, builder in New York, and straight away he said he'd sponsor it. So fair play to him. Without him, this couldn't happen. So I just want to praise him for that. But just a little thing that struck me today too. This is the first year ever that the Hogan Cup was played under the new rules. Because last year was the old rules, because remember it would have started in 24. And I'm just wondering, do the lads think that in any way influence, if there were old rules, if you're a good footballer, you're a good footballer. Do you think that was a benefit to the team you had this year, that they played under the new rules, or would it have made any difference?
I think we kind of said after winning the Leinster there against the Maris that it was very pleasing to have won a Brother Bosco under the old rules and then to go and win one under the new rules as well. And it's funny, like we met some of last year's team that evening on the way up to the reception in the school, and we just said, well, lads, how would you fare out against these boys? So there was a bit of laugh and a bit of crack going on. But I suppose with the new rules, like obviously midfield is a huge battle, and I suppose we're blessed this year that we two basically brand new midfielders. I know that Chris Dorr was coming back from a knee injury last year, so he didn't get the chance to feature at all in last year's run. And then Roy O'Brien is in Leaving Cert this year, and he committed fully to the football this year. So in terms of that, I suppose with the new rules, that was probably one of the biggest pluses that we had this year.
Yeah. The other thing, the boys referred to that match against Patsnavan, and I was at that game, and when the goalie struck that ball, I actually thought it was going over the black spot. That's how accurate it said. Game, set and match. And somebody above helped the ball to veer wide. But you remember, Alan, as a key member of Paddy's team in 04, he used to always talk about the rub of the relic. So would it be fair to say this year you got the little rub of the relic a couple of times? Now you deserve, a team will always deserve a bit of luck, but there was occasional little bits of luck here and there, and they played their part in the team. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, definitely. Look at and it was nearly like deja vu there last Tuesday as well, where you're sitting watching. It's the ball was in the McKivergan's control, same as it was against Navan, and you just don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, definitely at stages throughout the year there was times when we were looking dead and buried. Just reference, I know you were talking about the midfield battle there, but whenever something went against us, I'm just thinking about O'Rourke's goal against Abbey. Straight away from the next kick out, ball was kicked out. Chris Dorr came up with a huge play. I was actually watching back the game there again this evening, and the last 5 minutes of the game, Rory O'Brien, like the unseen work he was doing off the ball, when they were going in search of their equaliser coming near the end, Rory had 2 big tackles on O'Carroll and Garrod White, which was immense. And like that, when we needed a ball from a kick out, it was Chris Dorr who went up and tapped the break down to Michael Maloney, who delivered it into Finn. So yeah, we definitely got the rub of the green, but I think the lads at that stage is they recognised when big plays were needed, and lads stood up and were counted.
We asked this question last year after the won the Brother Bosco. The lads might be more forthcoming this year. I was dying to know of the 3 lads, who's the good cop and the bad cop and the okay cop. Anyone like to answer that? Don't forget you have another 2 months school to do. But
well, they're doing the Leaving Cert, so they'll be gone.
All bad cops.
All bad cops.
You make a politician.
No, but like it's the way that the whole thing is structured. In terms of its knockout, you're going to each game, and like it's real old school football, I suppose. I know new rules are in or whatever, but you only get one chance at one bite of the cherry, and if you don't come up trumps, you're gone and you're out, and that's just it.
Yeah, it comes at you thick and fast, and you get back. We're back in August, and I think maybe 6 or 7 days later with our first round of the league against Patsnavan, and Patsnavan went back a little bit earlier this year during the summer and had a good bit of work done, and the best point in that league, the first round of the league campaign was the only game we lost this year, including challenge matches. And then by the first week of October, we had both of our group games played in championship. So you're either in or you're out at that stage. And in years gone by, like Brian referenced earlier on, we would have been gone at that stage. So lads, schools football finished in October. So the last couple of years have been kind of unprecedented, I suppose, that we're getting so far into the year. But then straight from there, it is knockout. And one of the most pleasing things I think from this year is when you look back at the teams we've overcome the best. Like we bet Patsnavan, we bet Naas in the semi-final, who've been the best team over the last 10 years, and then you beat the team in the local derby then in the Leinster final. And then when you get to an All-Ireland semi-final, Ulster have won 5 of the last 6 All-Irelands, so you know you're up against it there. And that was, I think the lads will probably agree with that. That was probably our biggest test all year, was coming over Abbey. Now we were confident going into it. We played Dungannon, who would have been the favourites for Ulster over the Christmas period, and it was a right good battle, a great game of football, and we came out on top of that. And I think just filling in that questionnaire last night, I think that's when we started thinking of dreaming bigger than a Leinster, that we are one of the best teams in the country, and I think that gave us huge confidence that day. And then to go and win an All-Ireland final by beating the Kerry team is hugely satisfying. And the whole Kerry thing didn't really come for me until after the game, until you're talking to the older people, should I say, and to remember, I suppose, of maybe various different heartaches Kerry might have provided down through the years. Thinking back to actually when Kerry bet Westmeath in Cusack Park back in,
That's right.
I don't know what year was
12,
that.
yeah.
It was the when they won the All-Ireland after that, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a game Westmeath should have won that day. But no, massively satisfying when you look at that path to a Hogan Cup. I don't think anyone can take it away from us.
But it even makes it all the sweeter, Brian, when you do get across a team that has such a massive tradition behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the experience of Mark O'Shea on the line, you know that he's going to be able to pass on serious knowledge to them lads as well.
Barry John Keane as well.
Barry John Keane there on the
He's
line.
hardly a teacher.
He's there.
But in fairness to them, look at it, they were very gracious in defeat, and a lovely message came through the next day from them as well. Just congratulating us and complimenting the lads on their ability and their style of play as well. So.
And just going over to the lads here for a minute, it's ambition going forward for you boys. Is it to play senior football for Westmeath? Is that the goal for you three lads going forward?
I suppose, of course, it would be now. You have to have your standards high, and that's where you want to go play football. Obviously, we'll focus on the under-20s at the minute, and they're out Wednesday, and then we'll go back to our senior clubs for the summer. This be our first year playing senior clubs, so look, we'll get huge experience with that this year, and then a couple more years, maybe S&C development and coaching, and then hopefully, you'll be where you want to be.
Yeah, yourself, Michael?
Yeah, same, yeah. Westmeath, hopefully in the future, yeah. Will be on the plan.
Yeah,
You're out Wednesday night as well, and
yeah.
big game for you boys against Louth.
Yeah, they're the Leinster champions, I think, reigning from last year, but I suppose it doesn't really mean anything. It's a new team this year. I know they might have the same few lads, but we're just looking to go again and deliver a performance.
Yeah, that's the thing with these lads. It's like they're so young. You don't realise how young these lads are when you think about they're doing the leaving cert. They're trying to juggle playing with G lads for the Hogan Cup, and then a couple of weeks later they're out trying to play in the first round of Leinster Under-20 Championship, and you probably have one or two lads on the minor panel as well. Yeah. So it's trying to juggle everything together at one time.
Yeah, and I suppose we've huge representation this year. Maybe a nice nod to the success of the lads that they've had. I know the Westmeath Miners are playing Longford tomorrow night over in Newtown Forbes. I was just looking there, I think there could be 9 lads starting from our school, and I'd say off our senior panel there could be about maybe 5 or 6 of those, and then obviously there's a couple of lads that were on the junior panel stepping up. And then off our senior panel this year, I think we've 6 lads in with the 20s, so hopefully we'd love to see as many of them as possible. Well, I suppose we'd love to see all 6 of them in action, but yeah, it's great for them. As you said there, Alan, they've a lot on their plate, they've exams coming up around the corner, they'll have German, French, Irish orals all next week, and trying to juggle what they did last week and juggle county commitments this week as well. So, but look, I think again it's probably been alluded to a good bit recently. It's just testament to how good the lads are, and I suppose the levels of players that we're dealing with.
Yeah, in terms of this team, Jerry, are they the best team that you look back at in 1983 and you had Shawnee Hines and the legs playing? Are these boys better than that team?
Well, they are. They won the All-Ireland, They are. And it's funny looking back, and I know Rosemary Keating's behind me here, Paul's mother. I met her in the build-up to the final, and I was saying, like I mentioned, my father taught in Finian's, and Finian's lost the All-Ireland final in 1966, and I was at all the matches that year. I hope that makes it obvious I was very, very young 60 years ago, and they blew the All-Ireland final. They lost the match by a point. And I've had emails in recent months from a member of the Finian's team on about my Hogan Cup book. And he had a bad game, a stinking game. I'm not going to mention the lad's name. He wasn't from Westmeath either, he was a boarder. And he still has regrets over that match, and he's nearly 80 years of age. And I said to Rosemary, I said, make sure these lads win this match, and that when they're 80 years of age, they'll reflect back with pride and not regret. This man's nearly 80 years of age, and he said he still has sleepless nights over messing up a free in that particular match. So that's the glory of this. Winners write the history, and these lads are winners.
But the thing about that is, I think we all, anyone that has ever played the game, and these lads are probably are too young to have any regrets yet, but you always remember the 1 or 2 games where you think, jeez, if I didn't do that, or if I done that, or like we all have them. I was involved with you, Dino, in a couple of games.
Thinking back of 4 of them, not one of them.
Where we had a few regrets. But sure, listen, that's sport. You just have to learn to deal with them and get on with it. And as I said last year, you lost the All-Ireland semi-final. You could have sat in your laurels and said, "Oh, Leinster final's enough," but you didn't. You went back. The boys went back, put their shoulder to the wheel again, and got across the line. It's all about getting across that line. If you get across it once, it's easier to get across it a second time. It's just trying to get across that line. And I think a lot of credit is, and I'm not just saying it because there's a good few of them here in the background, but you have to have the backup of the parents. If you don't have the backup of the parents and them rowing in behind what you want to do, but especially as I know the young lads don't really tend to agree when they're 16 to 20 years of age, but it's your parents that mould you into the person that you're going to be in the future. And you can see that these lads have been very, very grounded and sent in the right direction by all parents.
Yeah, like I suppose it's great, like you've got lovely messages from parents over the last couple of nights and that, and we've just been commenting like nearly it's a 2-year journey that we've been on with them. Now in saying that, there's some mornings when you're driving into Shamrocks at maybe 20 to 7 in the morning, it's pitch dark and you're nearly afraid to salute somebody. They're probably thinking, there's that fella getting them out of the bed early again. But no, it is like, I mean, anything that we asked of the players, and as you said, the parents, like they just row in behind them, and I suppose really they just give the lads the best chance that they can to go and perform the way that they did.
It makes it easier to get them up at 6 next year rather than 7. But no, listen, it was great to have the lads on. I'd like to congratulate Michael, Mikey and Ty and Dino, Matt and Brian on a wonderful victory for Westmeath. Really, really good, obviously for the CBS, and with a bit of luck, it's only the start of better things to come down the line as well. So congratulations to you all, congratulations to all the parents. You're very proud people, and so you should be, and we're extremely proud as a county of them, and I'm pretty sure that multiplies by 10 for you. So congratulations, guys. We'll just take a break now and be back in 10 minutes. Welcome back, folks. Right back to our original panel of members after the CBS crew have left the building. On my left, we have resident pundits Brendan Shaw and Pa O'Brien, and to my right, Dennis Glennon and Jerry Buckley. You're very welcome, lads.
Thanks.
First of all, lads, you were here for that. It was great to see them young lads in, getting to give their thoughts on what they've won over the last week or so.
Yeah, really impressive. They all spoke very well, and they're a credit to themselves and their families and their school. And really, it's a great story from start to finish. Like they showed great character the whole way through the year, and they deserve all the plaudits they get, because they truly won it the hard way, and hopefully they can have bright futures ahead of them.
Yeah, Pat, they're an impressive group of young men.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing you did say, and I was delighted you said it, like they're a credit to their parents, because the parents mould a lot of these young lads in, but they speak very well. They're very well grounded. They're mannerly. They can communicate with young and old. But they're an inspiration now to the rest of the young lads in the school. Any young lad, say a first year and second year, is really aspiring to becoming a senior player with Coláiste Mhuire. And any young lad that's, say, in national school is saying, "Oh, I want to go to St Mary's," even though it might be out of his boundary as regards maybe buses or transportation or whatever. But you see that it's an attractive draw. They're not worried about the education end of it at all. They just want to go to play ball. But great credit also must go to the three lads. You know what I mean? Them boys had to get up every morning, to organise training, to be there. You have to be there, as you know, and we know, before players turn up, have it set up, organised. And they were on a time frame that they had to be in and out and back for school, So huge kudos to everybody involved, and it's great for Westmeath. We don't, I suppose, celebrate them often enough, because we don't get them that often, so it's fantastic that, as Niall O'Brien there, the vice principal, said, we're still going on with a smile on our face. And I said, well, why not? Enjoy it and continue to do so, because there'll be plenty of knockers along the way. But the task is always going to be daunting now for these young lads going forward at 20s and whatever. Everyone's expectations will be so high. The hurler on the ditch will think, we should be winning left, right and centre. Doesn't always happen. As you said rightly, some of these guys might never wear a maroon and white jersey, but the guys that do, they're the guys that, that day last Tuesday and the days before that will stand to them. They'll know what it's like to be in the heat of battle. They know what it's like to play in top occasions, and hopefully a lot of them will go forward and play for the county. So we very proud of them.
Absolutely. Dennis, you actually mentioned it here last week about the structures of the school and how well all our schools have done this year, but you'd be immensely proud of your own clubmate Dee McNicholas, who was heavily involved in the management and things of that winning team.
Yeah, massive. And you heard the management talk about the early training sessions before school and going out to Mullingar there in the dark and not knowing who they were meeting. And it kind of opened my eyes to the commitment levels that they are at that school. Because them lads also have to go back and play with their clubs and play with their county teams and play hurling, and yet they're still finding time to put in huge commitment to train for their school. Those systems that are put in place. As a parent, to try and bring them to all these training sessions, it must be massive. Get them up at all hours in the morning to do that. So they deserve great credit as well, and that can't be kind of go unnoticed. But yeah, very proud of Dino. I know Dino from being involved with Terrell's Pass. He's not the most vocal person when he's in a setup like that, but when he does talk, it makes a lot of sense, and you can see that's what he was doing with them lads.
Yeah, absolutely. So fair play to them. Anyway, we'll move on to the county games this weekend. We'll start with the hurling. A victory over Mayo, Brendan, this weekend, 237 to 114. Probably what we expected a win, but maybe not to the extent that it was.
That's true. Look, we were expected to win the game, obviously, but I don't think we appreciated how poor Mayo were. They were a very poor team. I didn't realise actually that they're actually in the Nicky Rackard competition. They're not even in Christy Ring, and it showed they they were really struggling, and look, we did what we had to do. We put up a good score, and some lads got to express themselves, and it was a good day for most lads. But unfortunately, we had another serious injury to one of our players, Dean Ennis, and a very serious injury it is. And unfortunately, he may be out for the year. So I just like to wish him well in his recovery, and our thoughts are with him. That he makes a full recovery and gets back on the playing field. But overall, look, mission accomplished in Mayo. It's on to McDonough now, and the guys are getting a few days off, and they'll be back at it now at the end of the week for preparations for McDonough. So that's 4 weeks from last Sunday, so you won't feel that coming.
No, absolutely not. And surprising how poor Mayo were, Pat, when you think about they've a couple of really strong hurling clubs. Like, I know ourselves, we've played Toreen a few times now, and they're a phenomenal outfit. And it was hard to believe how poor Mayo actually were.
Yeah, no, I mean, the table doesn't lie. They have 1 point, I think, in the whole campaign. No, they were extremely poor. There's a lot of clubs in Westmeath would have beaten that Mayo team last Saturday. They had no fight, they had no belief, they had no nothing. And and playing in a super venue like Castlebar, you think it'd bring out the best in the lads. But they had 1 or 2 nice hurlers, but as a collective bunch of players, they just didn't seem to have any great interest in playing in that level or that division. So look, you can read very little into it. We needed to win the match, I suppose. Confidence-wise, it was a good boost going forward. A lot of the ball was played in the top half of the field. Our defensive line wouldn't have had a whole lot of action as it turned out, and any ball that did come in, well, they dealt with it very, very simply and quite well. But going forward, we picked up a few other. I think young Gillen got an injury as well, and it could be ligaments in his ankle, which is very, very slow on that. But poor old Dean, I always said that he's a slight build of a lad. I'd love to see him in the top of the ground when the weather is good. And Joe McDonough was probably ideal for him. I wasn't overly excited about seeing him in the league campaign, and he's got an arm injury that will take. He had surgery today, and hopefully it went well. And realistically, he won't feature. He'd be doing well to feature for Delvin later on in the season, so hopefully he will. But look, this is where we are. We have to iron out whatever issues we have, because our next game, as we have highlighted enough, is the D game. We must get ready for London, because looking at the games over the weekend and the other teams that are in our group in Joe McDonough, they all are performing quite well. There was a humdinger above and down. We're downbeat Antrim, so we have to go to both of them places. And Davy is a wounded animal at the moment. Antrim will regroup. Down, when you get them in Ballycran, they're very, very difficult. Very difficult. Carlow are performing quite well. Laois, will be expecting to win this Division 2 or whatever, Division 2A, 2, and go forward, and they'll be having a strong hand also in the Joe McDonough. So there's nothing easy, but the first game is vital, because you cannot lose this game.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, Jerry. Just when we talk about Dean Ennis, he's one of these young lads that have acquitted themselves very, very well into coming into the setup this year, and one of the lads that has been probably a standout in the league of the new lads that have come into the team and trying to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, I join with the lads in wishing him well. He went off the pitch in extreme pain. Long time since I've seen a fella leave a pitch in such pain, and I sent a text to his father, Seamus, that night, and I know he was operated on. You can only wish him well. He's a slight build of a lad, as we say. Jack Gillen's a big lump of a man, and he suffered an injury too. And as far as I can see, there was nothing malicious in them. Injuries happen, but we really have been unlucky, and just hope to. We referred a couple of weeks ago to poor Dean with an illness off the pitch, and the lad doesn't deserve this on top of that illness, and life's not fair. And I just hope that his luck changes. In terms of the match itself. As I said, they're in the Nicky Rackard Cup, and I travelled down with Jerry Russell from Radio 3 yesterday, and we passed by the cemetery in Bunclody. I remember stopping a number of years back to say a prayer at Nicky Rackard's grave. He hurled before my memory kicks in, but I believe he was a fantastic hurler, and I remember stopping at his grave. There's no mention of hurling in the grave, it's just Nicky Rackard, blah, blah, blah. And I said to Jerry, I said, having seen Mayo on Saturday, I said, I think his name deserves to be, with a cup. Now, I know you'd only so many cups, but I said, Nicky Rackard, I said, if he came out of the grave there now, he'd beat Mayo by himself, But they were kind of pathetic, to be honest with you. And I would never look down on any county. But the number 10, Ryan Duffy, you'd have him on the team in Castletown now, flying, I'll tell you that. Owen Delaney at 12, Oisin Greeley, who got a rare thing that happens in hurling, the black card. Maybe those three were decent, but the rest of them were very, very poor. But you can only beat what's in front of you. We racked up a good score. Superb individual display by Darragh McCormack, one he's been threatening for a while, and lots of other good displays. Like Matthew Cunningham came off the bench, kind of a fringe player, and scored 5 points from play. You might say it was against Mayo. Nothing wrong with 5 points from play from a sub. So there were a lot of positives, but it's unfortunate with the injuries. Poor old Kevin, I was chatting to him after, I said, God, I said, did you run down a black cat or something? You're getting no luck whatsoever. And let's just hope these lads are ready, because please God, I'm going to London for that match. And given what Pat has just outlined there, there's very, very tough teams in that group. So I was going to say we'll be chatting, we won't, because this is the last of the podcast. But if we don't beat London in that, we're in big trouble, because it's I would say my personal target in that is survival. And if we make inroads into the competition, well and good. But it's a must-win game, and we certainly could be doing with some of our injured lads back before that, and I wish them well.
Absolutely. And just before we move on to the football, I won't ask you, Brendan, because I know you're involved with the team, but Jerry and Pat, a sort of a synopsis of what way you thought the league has gone for us overall.
Well, sure, look at I suppose if we was to backtrack to myself, we were saying that the target would be to get to the final of the division we were in. And I suppose when you look at the hand that was dealt that Kevin had with so many injuries along the way, we just weren't in a position to get to that level, because we had an awful lot of inexperienced players, an awful lot of players that he blooded for the first time. A lot of players have got the feel of Intercounty hurling for the first time, and that's a benefit in itself, because going forward these lads will be learning all the time. We're probably in a better position, I think, if we get all our injuries sorted out in this division for next year, because it's a very tough division up above. You have 3 top class teams that are, in the Liam McCarthy. You're going to have next year Waterford, Offaly and Wexford. They're a step above this team at the moment. You also have a few teams that are playing well above themselves, the likes of Kildare. So it'll take another year for us to get it right. Hopefully we'll have learned from it. So overall, as I might feel disappointed we're not going out of it, I do think at the latter end of it we're happy enough. I feel happy enough that we do stay in the same division, that we do learn from it, build from it. The lads that have got that bit of experience, hopefully that'll bring it to their clubs over the summer and improve their own game, so that when they come back again to the management, that they'll be in a better position, a better frame of mind. But you would be hoping that luck changes for the management as regards the injury front. They just had such a raw deal.
Yeah. Jerry, yourself?
Yeah, it's funny, I might as well be brutally honest and say the day we drew with Kerry, I was at the football against Clare that day, and my good pal Paula Donovan and I, if we were one or the other, we'd ring each other about the games, and I said, could we have won and could we have lost? And I said, something, that might end up an ideal result. I said, in the sense that I think we'll end up, I said it here, I thought Laois would beat us, but I think other than that draw against Kerry, we'll win the rest of the games, and we'll probably end up third in the group behind Kerry on scoring difference, and that's precisely what happened. And I said, that's a respectable outcome, and I think it's an ideal outcome, and I think Pat, who knows a zillion times more about hurling than I do, I think it's ideal in the sense that, for the reasons Pat has outlined, Division 1B might have been a step too far next year, certainly with all these injuries. So I would say overall it's been a satisfactory campaign, given the bad luck with injuries. I'd be happy enough the way things went. We beat the teams we should beat. Now, we struggled more than I'd like against Derry, but we went and gave Mayo a good beating, and I think overall the scorecard is positive in Kevin O'Brien's favour. And again, to repeat, I hope his luck changes.
Absolutely, and you wish all them lads the very best of luck. Okay, well, we'll move on to the football and maybe the elephant in the room type of thing. A 1 point loss to Wexford yesterday by the scoreline of 2-16 to Wexford, 1-18 to Westmeath. Dennis, a game that we looked like we were fully in control of, and unfortunately the last 7 or 8 minutes totally went against us, and we ended up losing to a goal that was conceded with 6 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. Like our whole league campaign, we've conceded 14 goals, and look, a lot of them were soft goals. But when you're kind of trying to close out a game, you'd never expect that something like that you could be hit with such a sucker punch. Myself and Jerry were chatting here, like Wexford were in control of the ball in the last minute. Like any player worth his sod should have pulled down the defender or done something to stop him getting up the field to lay that ball in, to create that opportunity for Wexford. So that was disappointing. At half time it was 10 points to 5. I felt we're home and clear, we're controlling the game. We did struggle around midfield, which we have, I suppose, all league campaign, but I still felt we had enough in the bag to get over the line, but it just didn't happen. I think the thing that stood out to me mostly about it was when I looked at the two teams physically, Wexford looked like a big strong team compared to us. And whether that had a bearing at the very end, maybe we ran out and we probably took too many hits and we ran out of steam or something. That's the only thing I can put my thought on it, that we didn't get over the line against them, because if we're honest about it, and we said it last week in the podcast, like, they're not the greatest team in the world, Wexford. They're not a team that's going to cause any troubles in the Leinster Championship campaign. So it is what it is. It's disappointing. It's really disappointing because I spoke to you earlier, Jerry. We had possession of the ball and we basically took a shot that if we held on to it for another 30 seconds, we'd be looking forward to a league final. And that, you were speaking to Coláiste Mhuire lads about making the right decisions on the ball. That was an incorrect decision that ultimately cost us a league campaign, that we were so close to getting to a final on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, like, I know we can sit here and say this and that, but there's a lot of elements went into yesterday's loss that if we did something slightly different, we could have won the match. Brendan.
Yeah, Dennis summed it up well there, but it has been a pattern throughout the year. We've struggled to win primary possession there in the middle third. Our game management hasn't been good. We were lucky against Sligo in the first day as well. We were blessed, in fact. We've conceded 3 goals against Laois and 3 against Limerick, and that's been a feature. We seem to switch off at times, our concentration, or I don't know what it is, that conceding those goals has cost us dearly. And it's all very well attacking and looking good going forward, but if you don't lock up the back, you're going to find it difficult to win. And I think it's difficult and it's not easy to accept where we are, but that's where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Pat, you were the one person. I find it hard to say this now, to be honest. You're the one person that said here last week that Wexford would be a formidable opposition, and that Aidan was telling you that all they wanted was to make sure that they were still in the hunt in the last game of the league and bringing Westmeath down there, and ultimately he was right.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the support they had, it was such an occasion for them to get over the line. I mean, they celebrated after, like, they were after winning something really, really big. But, like, I mean, we created our own downfall, absolutely. I'd say Mark McHugh would be, you couldn't go near him yesterday because he would be so livid with what happened. Not even for, like as Dennis was saying, the man that lost the ball when he should have held on to possession. Just picture what happened then. Like, the goalkeeper got the ball for the kick out. He put it on the tee, it fell off it. He went back, he put it on it again. So that gave us another couple of seconds to get organised out. The guy from Wexford that won the ball, he went from the middle of the field all the way across to the sideline, unchallenged completely. He won the ball. The only man that came near him was Luke, and he went by Luke as if he was just a daffodil. He went straight through him because Luke was on his legs.
A slice pan, as Paddy said.
Well, he went through him. He got to the middle. He got down to the 50. And he just says, I'll lump this into the square.
Yeah.
And we actually had 4 fellas in the square, and they had 2. And their 2 ran to the ball, and our 4 didn't move to the ball. They took the shot, and at that stage, the other guy came in, and he got the rebound. So it was we never got a touch on the ball, all the way through that last, 40 seconds.
Yeah.
But overall, like, we were 8 points up with 15 minutes or less to go. Looked like Aidan spoke to me last night after he said, he was doing co-commentary on Wexford, and he was saying that Westmeath looked by far the better outfit, far more organised, far better, but he says they left the door open, and Wexford hung in, and they have that whole belief down there that if they have half a chance, they'll keep plugging away. They never drop the heads. You know, I suppose maybe they got a few lucky breaks. Westmeath got no free on the scoreboard whatsoever. Everything was from play. Wexford got 7. They got 2 2-pointers from frees and 3 frees. You know, but as Dennis says, I know in the old money last year you could have pulled them down, but if you did pull them, if Luke pulled them down, it was just a tap and go. He was still nearly at the same momentum, you know, because Luke couldn't hold the ball, or then, you know, there was no such thing, but just the defending was so poor at the end of the day. But it's a big setback to this team, because I did say to Aidan, I said Westmeath would acquit themselves an awful lot better in Division 2 next year than Wexford will, and he agreed, definitely. But he also said, well, Westmeath are not in it, Wexford are. So that's the bottom line. So it's very disappointing. I've been in Wexford a lot of years, coming home from his house and whatever. I tell you, it was the longest journey home yesterday evening that I ever had.
Yeah.
I have to agree with Pat there. Like, and you'd also have to think, like, Westmeath lost to Laois, they lost to Wexford, and they lost to Down. Like, if you're not beating Laois and you're not beating Wexford, you certainly have no place in Division 2 football. And that's the reality of it. Like, we've been so positive with the management and the decisions all season, but I think, like, it's probably time to be a little bit critical of them with some of the decisions they made yesterday. I thought young McCartan being taken off was cruel thing to happen to him again. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was running, he was working hard, he got on the ball, he turned and took a shot. It didn't work out for him, and he was whipped off straight away. He's a player with real quality, something that Westmeath is lacking in the forwards at the moment, with the likes of John Heslin retiring and players like that. Like, that can't be good for his confidence, you know. Like, these are few decisions that I thought were wrong on the line, that it didn't work out for them, and it's, I suppose it's easy to be critical when things don't go right, but for me yesterday that was a very bad decision from a management point of view.
Jerry, for someone probably that goes to more matches than all of us put together on this panel, it's a very, very disappointing end to the league campaign. That we were 3-4 weeks ago, we were very, very positive, and then we ended up poorly against Laois, but got back on track against Limerick. And then the other day, to be honest, we didn't play too bad yesterday. I felt that we played really, really well for 45-50 minutes, and unfortunately, at this level you have to play well for 65-70 or you're not going to get anything out of a game.
Yeah, well, I remember after the first match here, we beat Sligo. We talked in this podcast about, God, it must have been a horrid drive home for Sligo people after that match. It wasn't half the horrid drive home it was for Westmeath people after yesterday, you know. And, you know, Dennis mentioned the 3 matches we've lost. And, you know, if you throw in the fact that we were very, very, very lucky to beat Sligo, you know, it was the campaign a success, really. You know, 3 defeats, and one of the other wins, one of our wins was a lucky one. And, it was bitterly disappointing, you know, it really, really was. And, you know, you have certainty now with the hooter, so we could have looked up and said, whatever, there was 40 seconds left. The only way Wexford were going to get a goal, they were not going to have time for a nice little tippy-tappy pattern up the pitch. The only way they were going to get a goal was to thump it in, and I felt we should have been ready for that. And I was really kind of heartbroken, to be honest with you. And it's always a pleasure meeting Aidan O'Brien. He's a gentleman, and he asked me when the match was over, would I say a few words on Wexford radio? And because I don't know if I'm able to talk at all, or I don't know if I'm able to, I don't feel very coherent. But the first thing I said, as I praised Wexford for sticking at it, sticking at it. Is a friend of mine in this town. It's a lady, and she follows the football, and she says Westmeath tend to lack stick-at-itness. It's a made-up word. But Wexford didn't lack it yesterday, and as Pat said, they sensed there was a chance there. Now, they shouldn't have been given that chance, but they sensed it, and you have to applaud them for playing to the final whistle. But, given the fact now that there's a definitive thing with the hooter, we couldn't say yesterday, this so-and-so of a ref, he might play 2 more minutes. He couldn't play a second more than was on the hooter. And I'm not going to have a rant at people here. Nobody deliberately makes mistakes. But given that, I thought it was a scandalous way to lose the match, frankly.
It's one of those we can probably sit here and pick holes everywhere. Like when the game is over and you lose, as when you talk about management, myself and Pat know all about it. It's when you lose by a point or two. If you're the manager, you're going to go home and you're going to look at yourself first and foremost. You're not going to look at the players. But there's nothing really a manager can do when you're ahead by a couple of points with 50 seconds to a minute to go. It's up to the players to take onus then. It's up to the players to take onus on the pitch and say, right, the leaders on the field say, and I'm talking about everybody. I'm not talking about the lads up the end of the field that made a mistake. It's communication throughout the whole field. The full back line press up, they say we make sure we keep the ball, and they move to the half back line. It has to be an onus in all players.
It is to a certain degree, but like if you look at all the games in the league, we've conceded so much. Like it's an obvious there's a problem defensively with the setup we have. We've great lads going forward. Whittaker excellent, Sam McCartan excellent going forward. Wallace excellent going forward, but when all these lads are going forward, they're leaving their full back line open. We've conceded 2-16 yesterday against Wexford. The previous date was 3 something. Like these are ridiculous scores, at Division 3 level. Like for me, if you're up and you're up by a couple of points going into the dying minutes of the game, you pack the defence. You bring on your most defensive minded players and you make it as difficult for that team to get over the line, and we didn't do that. And I think the management have to take a little bit of slack for that, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you both played famously against Wexford in 2004, the Leinster semi-final, and there's no Matty Ford on this Wexford team. Yeah. Matty Ford was one of the best footballers in Ireland for many years, and there's a handful of other very good players in that team. Yeah. This was an ordinary Wexford team who beat us yesterday, and that makes it all the more galling. I can take, if we play Kerry, they're going to beat us, the more good players, but we've far, 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 far more good players than Wexford, and we lost.
Agreed.
Yeah, just it's a dark place, and if any of them are looking here now, we try. I'm myself trying not to be too critical of them because they have to get themselves ready now for a championship campaign, a Leinster championship campaign that they're hoping to at least get to a Leinster final so that we can guarantee All Ireland championship status for ourselves for the coming year. But after yesterday's loss, it's very hard to see that, Brendan.
It is. Longford are waiting in the long grass for us on the 19th of April, or is it the 12th? 12th, yeah. And they've been promoted. Management have a difficult task now to get the team up for that game. It's in Longford. It's going to be difficult. But just going back to what Dennis was saying, yesterday was the culmination of, I think, the whole year. We maybe got carried away after beating Kildare in the Hurling Cup, but look where Kildare are now. They are back down in Division 3. So really, we have to measure ourselves against that. What did we actually beat? And we didn't really. Maybe we gave ourselves a false expectation that we were better than we are. But look, the results don't lie, and there has been issues throughout the league with the goalkeeper was changed, the midfield struggled to win primary possession, and all those things kind of, I suppose, ganged up in the last play of that game yesterday. And but look, going back to your point, Alan, players have to take responsibility. The management and the coaching can only do so much. It's the players on the field; they have to show leadership and show a bit of. Maybe we're a bit of cynicism, like, and you know, make that decision, pull the man down or whatever it takes to win. We need that more ruthless streak, and that wasn't evident in the league at all. We play great football going forward, but we need to be tougher.
Yeah, I think if you look at Pat, the last play was the number 10. It was the wing forward that got across to win that kick out. Now Luke Loughlin is our full forward. Like we can be critical of him, saying that he probably could have pulled him down or whatever. But at the same time, he was the only one that made a run from the full forward line the whole way out to the wing to pick up a man that wasn't his man. So I would ask the question is, where was the wing back or whoever was supposed to be marking number 10? This is where I have the issue. Like Luke made a long burst and run. Your man went by him, as you said, Pat, as if he wasn't there. But like Luke was after putting in a massive shift. Okay, he wasn't as prolific on the scoreboard as he has been throughout the league. But at the same time, I would question as to where was, like, if you're 2 points up, no matter who took the shot or whether we should have took the shot in the first place, I would question is that who was supposed to be marking this man. The minute that ball was put down the tee, as you said, Pat, the ball fell off the tee. The goalie didn't even realise the ball was off the tee until he stepped to kick it and he realised, geez, I have to pull it back up, and he pulled it back up. So you said he got a couple of seconds. We nearly got 7 or 8, maybe 9 seconds.
Yeah, well,
there's plenty of time for your players out around that middle third, half backs, midfielders, half forwards, to pick up someone and say, nothing simple here.
Yeah, but that's where your leadership on the pitch comes in. Like, you can't expect Mark McHugh to be running into the pitch to tell lads, there's only 45 seconds left. All we need to do is contain the ball. Do not let them win possession. And I mean, it was so simple that the Wexford man won the ball. There was nobody near him. He ran from the middle of the pitch the whole way over to the wing to pick up the kick out. Nobody was on him. Why should that happen? Like, why would the people that were standing at the back not be roaring up, pick 10, pick 11, close them down? You know, I always said in this podcast about this team, we're better as a team when we overturn the ball. We're very attractive, we're very lively, we're very fast. Our biggest problem is winning our own kick out. But this was the opposition kick out. If it came up high, if we only punched it forward, the ball would be in open play. But we didn't contest the kick out. We didn't contest, and Luke would have been out on his legs. It didn't matter who went to him. Your man was going down the field with the ball. He felt, I've one last chance. It didn't matter who. If I went out, he'd have blew me out of the way. It didn't matter. But there was no support to stop him in the non-danger area. We let it go, we let it unfold. But what annoyed me about it was when the ball came into the square, and I'll challenge anyone to contradict it. You look at it, we had 4 guys in there, and nobody actually chased out to the ball. There was 2 Wexford lads came out to the ball first.
Yeah.
And it was a high speculative ball into the box. But leadership on the pitch, I'd say, will have disappointed Mark more so than anyone, because he can't be out there, but he has the voices out there. He just gets your players. Somebody has to do the shouting and the calling. Mark up, cover, support, close them down. Do not let them pass.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll haunt them. That last minute will haunt these guys.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about Longford. Longford are very, very average, but Longford have a day out next weekend in Crow Park.
That's right.
So that'll give them more confidence. They'll down in Longford. They'll bring a good crowd to it. They'll be sticky, but Meath are the next day.
Yeah. Can I just say one thing that really disappointed me as well? And ye played, I didn't. When we got the goal to go 8 points up, I said to Jerry Russell, batten down the hatches for the next few minutes now. Do not let these crowd in for a goal. I don't want to concede maybe a point over the next 5 minutes. And no sooner had it said than the umpire was raising the green flag. You should batten down the hatches. You know, you're at your most vulnerable when you're after getting a score. I don't have to tell you lads, you know.
Yeah, but you would see
that really annoyed me. Really
you're a
me.
soccer man also, and that's really what happens in the big games in the soccer. Once they score, you know, they get excited and celebrating, and that's when they're at their most vulnerable.
Exactly.
You know, you'd often see the good teams, they hit them straight away,
Yeah.
and then they realise, oh God, we're back to where we were.
If we had kept that 8 points,
for 5
even
minutes.
Even if it was down to 7 points.
But for 5 minutes.
For 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Game, set and match.
Over. We'd have ran out comfortable winners.
Comfortable winners.
It'd be one thing, Dennis would agree with me here, one thing the Paddy used to say, that if we get a goal, it is essential that we get the next point.
Yeah.
He said, I don't really care about scoring goals or points or whatever, but if we do happen to raise a green flag, it's essential that we get the next point to make sure that it's not gone from a 3-point game to a 2-point game. It's gone from 3 to 4. There's a big difference in 2 points and 4 points, and this is and even more so now with the 2-point rule.
It is, but look, I suppose something that just really only kind of hit me or dawned on me there was like that full back line, or the 6 backs has lost. Kevin Maguire has lost Jamie Canute in the last few years. Leaders, James Dolan.
Yeah, James Dolan.
Like they've lost an awful lot of leaders that they haven't really replaced, and what they have put in there are more attack-minded players. Like when we get a goal, like their main focus is getting forward and going again. Whereas it's probably something from the line that needs to come in to say, now lads, we need to focus on shutting up shop. We need to make sure that these don't get any handy scores, and if the opportunity arises to break, we take it, but we don't do it until we're sure.
Yeah.
You know,
You made a comment earlier, lads, about 14 goals conceded in the championship. I think Brendan, you said that we were changing the goalie. I actually thought our goalie yesterday made quite a
did
few
well.
really good
I
saves.
did well, yeah.
He made a point blank save at one stage with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. Went out for 45. He made a save actually where they ended up getting the goal at the end. He was the one that came out. The most disappointing part of that, Pat, I know you were giving out about that, but he got to turn with 4 lads there and go 7 or 8 steps and take the shot without anyone even getting a hand on him.
I know.
And the goalie made a good save again. So it was grand. We can say about changing goalie. I thought the goalie was quite good yesterday, especially.
He was.
Absolutely. Like the goalie can be the easily be the fall guy, but look, defensively, it's a collective effort, and it has to be, good communication. And it takes leadership, like, as the lad said, like, conceding a goal straight away after scoring is criminal, really. Like, to switch off mentally and just, you need to buckle down when in that situation and make sure that you're going to retain the possession. But 14 goals conceded in the league, that's a lot, and definitely questions have to be asked there defensively, how that can be addressed going forward.
But even on them 14 goals, Brendan, if they go through their analysts and go through video analysis of every one of those goals, 10 of those goals were conceded soft goals, unnecessary mistakes. You'd say, how do we let them in? Why are we letting these in? You have no issue whatsoever if a team comes attacking at you and to throw 2 or 3 passes together and a lad rifles it into the net. That's good football at the other end. But we were beaten in a lot of those out them 14 by not what you'd call good football. Mistakes on our behalf. And that's has to be addressed, or definitely going into championship.
Yeah, even at the end there too, I'm trying to picture in my mind's eye where the guy fielded the ball. As he said, he took a number of steps. Like, even a foul on them there outside the box, they'd have had a free. They weren't going to score a goal with 10 Westmeath lads in the line.
Yeah.
There were so many ways that could have been prevented. And, we probably implied last week that Jason Daly hadn't a particularly good match against Limerick, but yesterday was not his fault. He produced one great catch, a couple of good saves. He did all he could do for that winning goal. He made the save he was asked to make. So he has to depend on somebody to back him up, to be there to hoof the ball away. So, Jason Daly had a fine match yesterday, I felt.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree too. But the one thing that I think we need to work on over the next few weeks going into a Leinster Championship is making sure that we try whatever we need to do to retain our own kick out. We are under major pressure. I was very, very disappointed just in the whole second half. You go back and look, I looked at it a second time, you go back, the only thing that really, really disappointed me, apart from the few things that you mentioned, was the lack of our ability to win breaking ball. I've never seen, and maybe it's got to do with Dennis mentioned earlier, the size difference in the Wexford lads, that they're going in and they're winning ball and they're more physically strong than we are. But I'd say we lost definitely 90% of breaking ball from our own kick out yesterday.
That is an issue all through the
second
league, was to win our own ball from our own kick out. It was a series, even against Sligo here in the park. Sligo wouldn't have been in that game at all. Only they were able to win our kick outs. You know, if you go through it, like, we don't have huge, big physical men, and it's not just size. You need power as well. You know, you need huge, big men that are built. The way the new game has gone, like, you know, the ball is coming out to the centre more often now than it ever was. So we just don't have them. And like, we have attack-minded wing backs, and our best two players yesterday, like, were Whittaker and Wallace, like, going forward. But like, there is defensive duties also. Like, first and foremost, a 5 and 7 is a defender, and the defender's duty is to stop my man from winning possession and at all costs stop him from scoring. Anything after that is a bonus. But we seem to have the mentality that, we keep charging forward, charge forward. It's good when it's working, and it looks good, and we get good results from it. But there's stats are showing that we're getting caught at the back.
Yeah, well, the boys worked under Paddy. They obviously played under him. I did an awful lot of dealings with Paddy because I was secretary of the supporters group when he was here and used to meet every week. And like, Paddy wore a number 5. In the latter end of his career, he wore a number 2. And Paddy always would have said to me, his target as a defender was to stop his player scoring. And he was extremely proud that in 10 All-Ireland finals, only one player scored from play against him. And that was always kind of Paddy's boast. And you are right, a defender is there to defend. And I also just want to make a comment on something you mentioned earlier. I too feel sorry for Danny McCartan. It's not my job to pick the Westmeath team, but that poor lad must be looking over his shoulder every match. I know from fellas who watched him play Sigerson Cup, Danny McCartan is extremely highly rated at Sigerson Cup level. And I would just hope that he gets an extended run and that his confidence isn't too low. Maybe I'm out of line saying it's not my job to be. I just think he's getting a raw deal.
Yeah, no, and I'd agree with that. As a forward, you need to be playing to get confidence, and his confidence must be shattered because he's been taken off nearly every game he's played, and he hasn't done a lot wrong.
No, absolutely, and no, listen, and it was a sorry end to an okay league campaign as far as I could see. We could very well have been in a league final easily after last weekend, but listen, these things happen, and what can we do? Only dust ourselves down over the next few weeks and get the lads back in and back onto the field and wish them the very best luck, and hopefully their fortunes change over the next number of weeks. Lads, just to go through a couple of things before we finish up. Player of the week last week for the senior footballers was Ronan Wallace. Congratulations to Ronan. Nominations for Player of the Week this week for the hurling team, our 3 nominations are Matthew Cunningham, Nisha McKenna and Darragh McCormack, and our nominations for the football team of the week are Danny Scahill, Matthew Whittaker and Sam McCartan. So please can we all start voting on that, and we'll announce them over the social media platforms over the next few weeks. Just a few thank yous before we go. I'd like to thank Clark's Bar for the use of the venue here every week for the last 10 weeks. Also like to thank Ger Gavin on camera, always does a superb job. I'd like to thank Sinead Kiernan, PRO of the county board, who's always in the background helping out the lads as well, and also our producer Tom Brown, who does an immense job every week. Like to thank the 4 lads here who have been here for the last number of weeks, and all the other pundits that have helped out over the last 10 weeks. I particularly like to thank Ray Gavin for the work that he's done in this pod. I'm only filling in, and hopefully I haven't ruined the whole podcast on us over the last couple of weeks. But
I was just going to say, in that regard, Alan, I was going to say a thank you to you for being such an excellent compere the last couple of weeks.
Listen, we just try and do our best and wing it as best we can. That's what we do here. But I'd like to thank everyone for their viewership over the last number of weeks, and again, congratulations to CBS on their wonderful Hogan Cup victory over the last in the last 10 days or so. And finally, I'd like to wish Dean Ennis the very best of luck after a horrible injury last weekend, and hopefully Dean, who has suffered many an injury and illness down through the years, that it's a speedy recovery and get you back as soon as possible. So please God, we'll be back for the championships going forward, and we'll hopefully see you in the next number of weeks. Thanks guys, talk to you soon.